Hello, good morning. Thank you for joining us today on the third and final information session for the CYEN Eco Solutions Challenge. We welcome you and thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Carla Nichols and I am representing the Barbados chapter of CYEN. And I'm here today to talk about the third and final poll and how you can enter the competition and have a chance to win one of three $100 gift cards. So first, we're going to talk about why we're using the platform of UReport. UReport is a social messaging tool that allows youth to give their opinions or views on important topics. So during the inaugural Caribbean Youth for Climate Action Conference in 2021, one of the panelists outlined that the Caribbean is suffering from a data deficit. This means that the Caribbean does not have enough data that is produced by us for us. We have a drought of data that is relevant to us and that can be used to help shape policy. So UReport is one way that we can try to eliminate that data deficit by allowing youth to effectively submit their opinions and views where it will get the attention of policyholders. It is created by UNICEF and is a platform that aims to collect real-time views and opinions from youth globally. It's in over 80 countries and content is primarily in the form of polls or information box. So UReport is a social messaging tool. It exists on WhatsApp and Facebook, and it's a data collection system. And it is supposed to improve citizen engagement, particularly youth, to inform leaders and foster positive change. The program sends SMS polls, or WhatsApp in our case, and alerts its participants, collecting real-time responses and subsequently publishes the gathered data. So let's watch a short video on what UReport is.
UReport is a free SMS-based platform that gives young people an opportunity to UReport is a free SMS-based platform that gives young people an opportunity to speak out about issues happening in their community. The issues discussed on UReport vary from health, education, using a free SMS tool. With a basic phone, young people can be engaged in issues that concern them. In countries like Liberia, where UReport has been used during the Ebola outbreak, within 4 weeks of setting up, new reporters were empowered and they were able to get real-time information that was life-saving.
So thanks for watching. So in this example,
UReport
was used in Liberia during the Ebola outbreak to inform citizens of how to keep themselves safe and best practices. So it was an effective tool to push out information all at once to a wide variety of people. The idea behind UReport is to meet people where they're at, which is on their cell phones. Most people have cell phones already, but they might not be able to engage in other ways where it's harder to reach youth. So an example of how UReport was used in the Caribbean, it was used after a hurricane to give tips or provide information about where relief can be found. It was used during the ash fall recently in St. Vincent to understand what people's needs were and how people were being affected. So let's get to the challenge. As I said before, UReport exists on 2 platforms and there's 2 ways to enter the competition. There's Facebook Messenger and then there's WhatsApp. There are 3 polls that last 3 weeks each on different climate and environmental topics in the Eastern Caribbean. This poll is going to be on biodiversity. The previous 2 polls were on adaptation and food and water security, respectively. At the end of each poll, there are 3 calls for actionable ideas on how you can improve the topic that is being explored in those 3-week periods. There are 3 Zoom webinars. You're attending one right now that helps we are hosting to tell you more about the competition, to get your creative juices flowing about the topic, and to discuss among ourselves like what we think about the topic. There are 3 prizes, one for each poll, $100 US gift card that can be spent anywhere. So it's time to talk about biodiversity. First, what is biodiversity? Biodiversity refers to the variety of organisms within a given ecosystem or habitat. It is important because ecosystems are not built on one organism alone. Whatever happens to one can affect others in very significant ways. So for instance, if you overfish predators, then they don't prey as much on the smaller fish or whatever down the food chain, and therefore those fish might outgrow their habitat and eat more algae or plants than they're used to, and it might collapse the ecosystem because now it's out of balance. The same with prey disappearing. So if a lot of insects disappear because we're using pesticides and stuff like that, or we're cutting down the plants and the flowers that they normally use, then the birds don't have anything to eat, etc., or the lizards, and so they might die out. And so the animals that depend on them might in turn have issues because they don't have anything to eat then. So that's why biodiversity is so important, because ecosystems have evolved. Yes, ecosystems have evolved over many years to be acclimated to all the organisms within them. So it's important that we don't throw those out of balance, because it will have effects that, you know, affect more than just that one species that has been allowed to, either dwindle or it has become overpopulated. So what are some threats to biodiversity? So I mentioned some before. Some of the threats to biodiversity can include harmful pesticide use, or they can involve overfishing or overhunting. Habitat loss is also a huge threat to biodiversity, or just when you remove their habitats by deforestation, etc. So those are some of the threats to biodiversity. What do I see being done in my territory? I am from Barbados, and I would say that some of the biggest threats that we see to biodiversity are not protecting important habitats. Like, for instance, there's a Graham Hall Nature Sanctuary that is very important to migrating birds, and the government is not necessarily forthcoming with protecting that sanctuary or appreciating it for its value to the ecosystem. There are some things that the government is doing though. We had a problem with overfishing of sea eggs. So there's been a pretty effective implementation of a ban where sea eggs are only able to be harvested, sometimes not even every year, but maybe a couple months out of every other year or so on, and the numbers have started to come up. There's also been an issue with invasive species such as the lionfish, and so there have been programs that have been implemented that encourage fishing of lionfish for sport. So there'd be contests to see if you can catch the most lionfish, the biggest lionfish, etc., to kind of incentivize getting them out of the ecosystem. They've also introduced lionfish as a dish to encourage people to eat the invasive species to keep their numbers down. Now, with climate change, invasive species may become more of a problem because the habitats that they normally may have resided in, it might get warmer and they might move into new habitats, and that displaces the native species. So it's very important to pay attention to biodiversity in the fact that more species doesn't necessarily mean healthier biodiversity if those species are not native and they throw the existing ecosystem out of balance. Another thing I see being done in my territory is that we are trying to regrow native plants. And this is important to try to keep the existing flora and fauna thriving, because often, you know, native plants are bulldozed or uprooted in order to make way for cash crops or things that humans find personally profitable or useful, without taking into account that we share the planet with a wide variety of beings. And it's not just about us and what we find useful, but we depend on the environment we live in to be able to exist, you know, and we should try not to displace those species, because even if we don't see a reason for them, they have their own biological and ecologically based niche, and they have their own uses. I also see that we are trying to ban or de-incentivize using harmful pesticides, which kills not only the weeds that we see as harmful, but it will also kill the pollinator plants and the bees. And I see that there's a lot of incentivization of keeping bees and an effort to pass that that skill set down to the youth. So I think that's very good, because I see like beekeeping workshops, etc., that are becoming more prevalent. And so the youth are being taught about the importance of bees and pollinator plants. And I think that's excellent, because we need to pass down this knowledge so that it doesn't die with people who were maybe early on the uptake and saw the value of these things before. What more would I like to see done? I would say that I think people should be taught to value the ecologies around them. So they should be taught to value the forested areas that are left. They should be taught to value the coral reefs. Coral reefs are actually the most biodiverse habitats they are. And in the Caribbean, we are close to the equator, and that is actually a hotspot for biodiversity because of the climate that doesn't change too much and not having winter. So I think we should be learning to value those things, so that we don't do things that jeopardize the biodiversity that we have, and that makes the Caribbean such a wonderful place to live. So I think education is very important. Setting policy decisions that benefit biodiversity, etc. So protecting the forested areas, the biodiversity hotspots, etc. Banning the pesticides. I would just like to see more being done in that direction, and education, so the public knows why it's important, and the public helps the government to make these ventures successful. If there's anyone who would like to say what they see being done in their territory, or what they'd like to see being done, you can raise your hand and I would call on you. So let me just look to see if anyone's hand is raised. Okay. I don't see anyone, so I will move on. So how to enter the challenge. This is the part about how you can participate in UReport and get your chance to win one of the $100 US gift cards that are the prizes for the most insightful, the most unique, the most out-of-the-box answers. So first, you need to add UReport as a contact on WhatsApp. or find UReport on Facebook Messenger. There are 3 different UReport accounts depending on the territory you live in. And there's UReport Barbados, UReport OECS, and UReport Trinidad and Tobago. Message the word challenge, CHALLENGE, to join and begin the poll. So it's a bot. So when you message the trigger word, it will automatically bring up the challenge, and you will be asked to provide a little bit of personal information, nothing that is personally identifiable because they take your privacy very seriously. They'll just ask you your age, what country you're messaging from, just so that they can understand the data a little bit better, and your parish, but they won't ask you your name or anything else that could personally identify you, right? And then you fill out the poll, you give your actionable idea, and then, you know, hopefully you are the winner. So this is how to enter the challenge. For Trinidad, you can WhatsApp the word challenge to 1-868-296-7723. For OECS countries, you can WhatsApp the word challenge to 1-758-287-2124. For Barbados, you can WhatsApp the word challenge to 1-246-832-6775. And if you'd like to enter on Facebook Messenger, which would give you another chance to enter, because it doesn't matter that you entered already on WhatsApp, you can WhatsApp the word challenge to either UReport Trinidad and Tobago, UReport OECS, or UReport Barbados. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see if anyone has questions. You can raise your hand if you'd like to either talk about biodiversity in your area, or if you have any questions on how to enter the competition. Okay, I don't see anybody with their hands raised, so I will share my screen again so you can see those numbers. So again, to enter from Trinidad and Tobago, WhatsApp challenge to 1-868-296-7723. If you're in an OECS country, WhatsApp the word challenge to 758-287-2124. And if you're from Barbados, 1-246-832-6775. So I'll leave that up for a couple more minutes, just in case you need to write it down. And remember that a good answer is thorough but original, thinks outside the box, and actionable. The key is actionable. You know, we want you to submit your ideas that can be implemented. So something that is feasible and that will help preserve the biodiversity of the Caribbean. So thank you everyone for joining us this morning, and I wish you the best of luck. You can, if you have any questions about the challenge, you can email me at Carla, K-A-R-L-A, .Nichols, N-I-C-H-O-L-L-S, at CYEN.org. Thank you so much, and good luck in the challenge.